Good afternoon, everyone. The Organizational Development Standing Committee of the Richmond City Council will now come to order. Mr. Clerk, if you would please read the chamber emergency evacuation announcement.
Upon activation of the emergency alarm signal, all persons should immediately exit the building. Please use the exits to the left or right front of the council chamber or the east or west stairwell outside the rear doors of the chamber. Do not use elevators or escalators. After exiting the building, proceed down 9th Street and enter the assembly area located in the former public safety building parking lot. Able persons should assist visually and hearing impaired visitors with exiting the building. And for the record, Madam Chair, all members of the committee are in attendance with the exception of Member Lynch and Member Robertson. You do have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Let's now handle any proposed amendments to this afternoon's agenda.
Yes, Madam Chair, the proposed amendment to tonight's agenda is that consideration of the Civilian Review Board applications will be continued to the Monday, June 2nd Organizational Development Standing Committee meeting. Is there a motion to move forward with that amendment?
So moved.
The committee is voting on the motion to amend the agenda as stated. Mr. Breton. Ms. Gibson.
Yes.
Ms. Jones.
Aye.
Ms. Trammell. Ms. Abubakar.
Aye.
Vice Chair Jordan. And Chair Newville.
Aye.
That motion was approved.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Let's move on to the approval of the minutes.
The minutes to be approved are from the April 7th, 2025 Organizational Development Standing Committee meeting held at 4 p.m. If there are no amendments or corrections, then the meeting minutes will stand approved as presented.
Thank you.
And those minutes have been approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We'll move on to the reports for this evening.
Yes, the first item on today's reports is a tax rebate update.
Welcome, Ms. Joy Hogg.
Good afternoon. Obviously, I'm not Sheila White, Sabrina Joy Hogg, interim CAO. Sheila White is a little busy right now. She's trying to get the real estate billing out the door, all the personal property tax and the BPO licenses. This is her busiest time of the year and also beginning the audit process for next year. Sorry, for this year end. So you wanted an update on the rebates. We spoke a little bit about it at one of our last meetings. As you know, there was an issue with the payee. The pay to the order of about 8,000 checks were made out to the Hartshorn Community Council. 3,000 of those were actually distributed. They were out on the street. 5,000, and I'm giving you roundabout numbers, 5,000 were pulled back. There were a total of 59,000 checks that were printed. They were able to stop 36,000 and held them back so that they didn't get out on the street. As soon as the pay to the order of error was found, Sheila stopped the process, stopped printing checks, and basically asked for a audit of it from a different deputy director who handles the city's financial audit. So he's been conducting that audit of the whole process from start to finish. Good thing is the calculation proved out to be correct from both angles. So the math is correct. What has happened is that we had the wrong payee on 8,000 of those checks. But also the second issue that we found was the ordinance calls for the FY 2024 property owner to receive the rebate. Unfortunately, there were some 2025 property owners that received the rebate instead. That was about 2,000 or so that we think that were crossed over. That meant the property changed hands from 24 to 25. So those 2,000 can be part of the 3,000 that has been mailed out, or it is part of the 36,000 that they managed to stop. We don't know yet, right? Because everything at this point has to be done manually. Of the mailed checks, 23,000 were actually mailed. 15,000 of those were cashed. And some of those are very valid checks. They're valid. When the announcement went out of the wrong payee went out along with the press announcement and a letter to the homes, finance did not put a stop payment on it. Let's just call it a stop payment. That's a more technical term, because we didn't want to impact the valid checks out there. right, and cause even more confusion. However, when they started to see some of those Hawthorne checks being cashed, they put a stop payment on the whole file. Since then, what they've done is worked with the financial institutions to work out a process that if it was a valid check, the financial institution is contacting finance. Finance is then saying, yes, it is a valid check, go ahead and cash. So we don't have a stop payment completely on it anymore. They are working through with the financial institutions. Of those stop payments, 69 have been requested for a refund. Finance will need to check to make sure those are valid checks that were stopped and not one of the Hawthorne ones or a wrong payment to a wrong property owner. So we've only got 69. They will process all of those. We do not think, right now, we don't think there's any more that are going to come in because that process has been worked out with the financial institutions that of the 23,000, 815 have been cashed, 8,000 remain out there. Of those 8,000, we do not think that any of those valid payments will be stopped anymore because of that process being put into place with the financial institutions. The checks are valid for about 90 days. They go stale around June 16th. So one of the questions was, when do they resume the processing of the remainder of the payments? Is we're going to wait until that stale date payment is finished on June 16th. June 17th, they will reprint all of the checks and start sending them out. So people should have their checks hopefully by June 30th, the latest. That is so we don't disrupt the valid checks that are out there in the community so far. Otherwise, it just causes even more confusion. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Joy Hogg. Member Gibson?
Thank you, Madam President. If you could, that was a lot of numbers very quickly. If you could go through the numbers from the top, beginning with the number of checks that were sent out. If you could just go very slowly through that cadence. Sure. Thank you.
I'll give you rounded numbers. Mailed out were about 23,000. The ones that had the wrong payee number, wrong payee address was about 8,300. Of those, they were able to pull back about 5,200, which means about 3,100 went out the door. 3 of those we know have been cashed. All 8,300 folks who received that.
So say this once. So how many of those? So that was in the first batch.
They're done in 5,000 checks at a batch. So we had 23,000 checks that were mailed. There were a total of 59,000 that were printed. 23,000 went out the door.
I apologize. Mm-hmm. So are you going through, I would like to understand the March timeline in addition to the most recent batch. So just
they stopped the process. Sheila stopped the process once this wrong payee was found. This was all in March.
So all of the issues we are seeing today are with the initial batch of checks that were mailed the first time.
Yes. A simplistic answer, yes.
Okay. So if you could just, again, start from the top.
Sure. 59,000 were printed. 23,000 were mailed. 36 were pulled back, 36,000. 8,000 of those were the wrong payee. 3,000 of those were in the mail. They were able to pull back about 5,200.
Okay. And of the 3,200 which were mailed, then you proceeded to share updates regarding the amounts on them and then the payees on them. If you could just continue.
The payee was it's actually 3,100. It's the Hartshorn Community Council. Those were the wrong payees on that one.
Okay. And so you mentioned an audit. So you're saying, so there was one audit that's been done. Has there been any audits done in the finance department, or?
It was in the finance department. It was a separate deputy director who handles the city's financial audit. Did from step 1 all the way through to make sure that the process was carried out correctly. What we found was the math is correct. So the rebate calculation is correct. What was incorrect was this Hawthorne payee and also the few properties that changed hands from 24 to 25.
Okay. So of the 3,200 that were mailed, then a stop payment was completed on all of those.
Stop payment was completed on everything, except for the 2,300 that was out there, because the ones that they were able to pull back, the 36,000, which are now, they need to be destroyed, a stop payment was issued on those too, because everything is so manual at this point without going through 60,000 envelopes and checks, which you have to open every one to figure out what the serial numbers and the check numbers are.
Yeah.
So that it's easier just to stop payment on all of it.
Okay.
And it's actually, they took them, the technical term is they took them off the positive pay file. For us, it's stop payment.
So if I'm understanding, so first we sent out the letter stating that the payee was incorrect. And then there was a stop payment because there was a concern about the amounts on the check.
It was a stop payment because we sent out an announcement, a media advisory. Then we sent a letter to all 8,300 people. I got one too that says, please do not cash. It is made out to the wrong one. If you have a valid check, go ahead and cash it. But if it says Hawthorne Community Council, please do not cash. That's what it said on the letter. So some folks did cash it, even though it was not made out to them.
So thank you. Can you continue with the moving forward plan?
The moving forward plan is we want to wait until the remainder of the checks that are out in the system, which is, remember I told you 23,000 went out the door, 15,000 have been cashed. 8,000 are still out there that have not been cashed. Those checks that are out in the community will go stale June 16th. It's a 90-day timeline. Once they go stale, they'll be dead. They cannot be cashed. So finance will reprint all of the remainder of all of the checks and get them out the door hopefully by June 30th.
So how many checks need to be mailed out total?
Probably 36,000 more.
And
36
so
plus the I would say plus the 5, so about 41.
so residents are going to have to wait now until June?
Yes. That is the cleanest way that we can do it without causing confusion out there. We don't know, because it's all the checks go out, it's right now it's a manual process.
Yeah.
And if we were to stop and open up every envelope, we'd be looking at August, September.
Yeah, that's really disappointing because there are people that are depending and have been waiting very patiently for this money. I mean, I can speak in my district. This is a huge deal. We're getting lots of emails. People are really concerned, and I think that understandably so. I think that how it feels for residents is that the city is really good at taking their money, but not so good about giving it back. And so I think that this speaks to the importance of, when we're talking about what the tax rate is, when we're looking at revenue projections, that we are doing everything we can to get it right, because it's taking the amount of resources that it's taking here at City Hall, the possibility for error. We're not building trust. And I appreciate the update, but I telling folks that they're going to have to wait an additional this additional time, it's disappointing.
I don't disagree.
Thank you, Ms. Joy Hogg. Ms. Councilmember Abubakar.
Thank you, Madam President. Okay, a few questions. One, I just want to clarify, you're saying that everything that's wrong with these checks is about the payee. There's no, are we looking at the amounts at this point while we're doing QA to assure that the amounts, because I mean, is there any possibility that the amounts themselves could also be incorrect at this point?
No, they were so when it was done the first time to the second check, which was completely independent, the math was correct. It was the payees.
Okay. How do we?
And just so you know, I did ask our auditor's office also to go back in and oversee, just give it a second look of the whole process, to sit with the second person who did the auditing in finance.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine that's going to take quite a long time.
Well, hopefully not. Hopefully they can just run through the steps and make sure that they can validate that it was correctly done.
So speaking to those steps, what pieces, it sounds like there's only QA at the very end of this process for them to have gotten this far, or at least in the initial original process, the QA was at the very end. And best financial practices, there's QA usually at individual steps so that we don't, a snowball doesn't turn into an avalanche. So I'm trying to figure out what in that process are you working to adjust at this point? And then, we'll answer that first.
So this is not a process that's done yearly, right? This happened maybe once before, 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago. So this is a process that is every once in a while. There is QC that happens along the way. The QC was not sufficient. Since then, finance has written SOPs and documented QCs going forward. I can't correct what's happened in the past, but going forward, it's QC'd at more than just one individual level or two people. It needs to have 3 or 4 independent reviewers looking at it, going through the process. That did not exist before.
Okay, and then in terms of just accountability, I really appreciated when Ms. Atkinson came to the governmental ops committee meeting and owned her part of the process, explained where the mistakes happened. Again, I said that's what we're looking for in City Hall. And then not a month later, she's left. The deputy director of revenue has also left the city in February. Those positions were both less than a year old. It sounds like the people who are trying to make change and point out issues are the ones that seem to be falling on the sword. Is that observation about culture accurate? Or, I mean, what made them leave the city when it seemed like they were committed to identifying problems and remediating the process?
So that is not accurate. And I will leave it there because then I get down a personnel road and I don't want to go there. We can discuss it offline if you like, but that is a personnel issue that I'm not going to go into.
And then lastly, how do we assure that you said that there's been 15,000 checks have already been cashed? How do we assure that when we go through this whole process that those checks aren't issued for a second time?
That's why we need to wait until June 16th. Because every check that was printed will go dead that have not been cashed.
But if
the bank will not
was cashed,
those are fine. If they're valid checks,
and
they're
they're
fine.
being taken off the rolls so that they won't get
Yep.
a second check.
Exactly.
What about, you said that there was, I think, 4 people that
3.
3 people who received a check, cashed it even though they weren't supposed to. What is the efforts?
Finance will have to recoup that money because it doesn't belong to them.
Thank you.
Councilman Breton.
Thank you. I was actually just gonna ask some questions just to help residents, to understand what they should do next. So it sounds like if I manage to cash a check that had my name on it, I'm in good shape, and I should not expect a second one. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
All right. If I cashed one and it bounced for some reason in the past because we hadn't figured out this new system, I should request a refund from the city. Is that correct?
Correct.
And
If
then
it was made out to you and it wasn't made out to somebody else.
Mhm.
If it's a valid check, yes, they should
see.
request for refund.
All right. Now, if I received one that's incorrect,
Refund
I
in
should
terms of
destroy
the
it?
bank fees that they may have gotten charged.
I see, yes. So one that was proper to me, but it bounced because of a stop payment, I
Correct.
should request a refund. If I received one that was incorrect, I should destroy it.
Correct.
If I received
You can
one,
destroy it or turn it into finance, either way.
okay, if I received one that is correct, I should be able to cash it. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now if I receive one that's correct, but I'm confused and I don't cash it and it goes stale, will I get another one?
Yes.
And if I've not received one, I should expect one around June 30th, you said?
Yeah, before June 30th, hopefully.
Yeah, thank you.
Other questions from members at this time? Councilmember Trammell?
Thank you, Madam President. Sabrina, I have a question. Were the checks that were sent out, were they based on 2025 or 2024?
So the rebate has to go back to the 2024 property taxpayers. That's how the ordinance is written. The second error that was found during the audit process was that some of those checks that were sent or cut went to the 2025 owner. The 2025 owner should not be getting a rebate. It's the 2024 owner of the property that gets the rebate.
But I thought everybody was going to get a rebate according to,
It's only 2024, those people who paid their taxes in 2024. Because it's 2024 surplus funds that we used for this.
that's, I really don't understand how that worked. But anyway, I'm getting a lot of phone calls just now. Again, they're getting this right here that says that you have to pay. It's not going to North Carolina anymore. Now it's going to Philadelphia. And people are upset. They want to know how come we are not, it's not in-house. Why is it now? Because in that, we got to pay more money to do this? No.
No, so that is what we call the lockbox. That's where the payment center is. It was going to North Carolina. It was not sitting with the bank. It was going to a separate lockbox. What finance has done is now switched it to the lockbox where Wells Fargo is, and that exists in Philadelphia, I believe. There is no Wells Fargo lockbox in Richmond. So we've done that. One, now the money goes to where the bank is, and the payments are posted much faster. It was a very disjointed type of activity that happened in North Carolina. And not because of the lockbox, but just because the systems the checks had to be reported and files had to be created. Now it's going to where the bank is.
Do you know who created this, who wanted this? I mean, because a lot of citizens are mad because they're saying that these are jobs that we could have right here in the city.
There is no lockbox for Wells Fargo in Richmond.
And that's the only bank we use?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Wells Fargo is the bank that we bank with.
And how long has this been going on? Because it was North Carolina. Now, as of June, it's going to go to Philadelphia. Has this been years?
Yeah, it's been years.
Okay, so this is not under our mayor.
No, this has been going on for a long time. Usually localities will have some place where the payments are sent to, whether it's, North Carolina or Atlanta, wherever it is, South Carolina sometimes.
I know the citizens are upset because they said it's not fair that you're taking jobs from us and getting it to another locality. But
Yeah, they were
it's-
going to North Carolina anyway.
We just don't have a lockbox.
Right.
Or the bank that we use does not have a lockbox, and that's Wells Fargo.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Robertson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I guess my question is to get some clarification on why this happened. Why did this happen? What was the deficiency in the quality controls that were not in place to prevent this from happening? And to be just frank, it's a little concerning as to whether or not the corrective action is really going to resolve the magnitude of this error, because the error has so many different moving parts to, or too many, I should say, moving parts to it. And I appreciate the fact that you've asked our auditor to go back and do an audit. I would not be so presumptive to say that it won't take long, because when our auditor comes in, we intentionally want to cover all moving parts. We don't want to have the investment of his team time to do a courtesy audit or type such. So we would, Madam President, I think it's interesting for me that the administration can ask our auditor to do an audit. If we want an outside audit done, we have to get more than one person on council to approve such and go through a pretty extensive process. So I think that's something that we probably need to do a better check and balance on to make sure that our auditor plan of action is not changed because of situations like this. I support, your request, but I think it needs to be something that council has a little bit more input in how we put those things in order. But my questions are, so you've got several people that the wrong name was on the check. Some people do banking, like I get a check from the city, I don't think twice about it, I deposit it in my bank.
Hopefully you look at who it's made out to, because you got to sign the back of it.
So like I said, some people, we can hope that we never made this error, and then we wouldn't be having this conversation. That's really what we need to be hoping. But in as much that people do have customary ways of how they do things. So if I deposit this check in my account and therefore I've cashed it, I want to understand the recourse for that, but I want to understand where the lack of quality control glitches were that you've been able to identify now, and what are the specific corrective actions that are in place so that as we make corrections to this error, the corrective quality control factors have been put in place and will be exercised. What are they? Can you help us understand that?
Oh, yeah, I can try. So there was a presentation given, I think, at GovOps a while ago when finance did come and talked about what the issues were and what caused it. So the quality control that was supposed to be there was not sufficient.
To refresh my mind, what caused this to happen? Why the quality control standards that were in place at that time did not prevent it? And what are the corrective actions that have been put in place? If you can walk me through that timeline,
I
that would be
can try to walk it as far as I know them. So when the file was
in
produced,
addition to that, Madam Chair, when we're getting a presentation as complicated as this is, it really would be helpful to have it sent to us so that I can not trouble myself with trying to figure out what questions I'm asking and whether or not I'm asking all that I need to ask to get the answers, because this is very complicated. It is extremely, extremely complicated, and there are multiple layers of errors. So though we did not receive this, Madam Chair, I would request that we get it so that I can go back and review and compare the responses that I'm getting as well. So my question remains the same.
So there is really no presentation. This request came very late last week. So I'm giving you the numbers. The quality control that was in place was apparently and obviously not sufficient. That happened. This is a process that does not happen annually. So it did not have written down SOPs. It had an ordinance for guidance, but those SOPs did not exist because this is not an annual process that finance does. Since this occurred, they have written SOPs. Should we ever give out another rebate? Again, there are now SOPs in place.
Were the SOPs written prior to
No.
the actual
No.
carrying out the ordinance? So there were no SOP for the ordinance?
Right, because this is not a usual occurrence. So usually,
Let me ask you another
Mhm.
policy question then. Because if we pass an ordinance, in order to execute the ordinance, SOPs should be drafted to control the execution, administration of the ordinance. Is it your policy to put SOPs in place to support the execution or administration of an ordinance?
in the
prior
perfect
to-
world, yes.
Yes?
Yes. In the perfect world, yes.
But that
Absolutely.
wasn't done in this case?
Correct.
Okay.
I'm sorry. So the QCs apparently were not sufficient, which from this point going forward, they will be sufficient because part of the QC will involve several people independently working to reach the same conclusion. That did not happen. There was a group that did do this work, but the final QC missed these issues that were found with the payee. It was a file transfer that occurred that overwrote 8,000 names with the Hudson name. And then the second error that occurred was the 24 and 25 properties changing hands. So that was not picked up either. That's I guess, a unique part of the ordinance that says it has to be the 24 property owners. But they're using the 25 land book to do the calculations, but the payment goes back to the 24 property owners. That was the second piece that was missed.
One follow-up, Madam Chair. How do you find those 24 property owners? Where are they? If you have your property identified based on the current owner, correct? Right?
Mhm.
In your database. How do you find who was there in 24?
You have to do a match between 24 and 25. So you're using the 25 land book to do the calculation, but it is based on the 24 property owner. I'm sorry, parcel ID. Sorry,
I'm sorry.
parcel ID.
Hmm?
You look at the parcel ID to find the ownership change. There's a
You got it?
lot,
You
and
got-
by the way, these are on Excel spreadsheets. It's not
Okay,
a
so let me ask you this question, and I'm going to leave it alone because honestly, I'm not feeling any real comfort that the taxpayers that we won't continue to have some glitches that have not been addressed. Is it possible for your SOP that has now been drafted that indicates your QCs? Is that something that we can have available to us to better understand and to give you some feedback as to whether or not there are questions that we would have as to whether or not the SOP is glitch proof?
Sure.
Thank you.
So, Ms. Joy Hogg, I know I have another member as a question, but right now want to make sure that what you have indicated you'll provide is a written report that codifies the information that you provided this afternoon, whether number of checks mailed, cashed, et cetera. That's one item. The other, just now, the SOP governing the 2020, the 24 rebate that will come as one of the QC items. And then there is Mr. Riyad, what is being done is a review.
And what
Okay?
I've asked him to do is take a second look at
Right,
the second audit, not the second, the audit that was done by finance, and to sit with that person to make sure all of the pieces are
exactly.
covered. Yes. So
Exactly.
it's not an audit I've asked for, it's a second look.
Right, I'm just wanting to
'Cause-
clarify.
Right, because we want to get the checks out the door, right? And we know a full-scale audit is going to take time, but at least
Sure.
if we have a second set of eyes or third set of eyes at this point, we have comfort in knowing that the process was done correctly.
Thank you. And just coming back to Councilmember Robertson's comment, Councilmember, in terms of our process relative to audits and working with the auditor, that's something I'll, concur around the wagons with you, but this was a review to help make sure that what goes out is accurate, was my understanding. And so with that, we have two more questions. Councilmember Gibson.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciated the point Councilwoman Robertson shared regarding written documentation. I mean, it's there's a lot of information here, and this is complex, and we and the public should be able to understand with clarity exactly what happened. And that's especially true given that we mailed thousands, tens of thousands of letters to folks. The letters had no date on them, explaining that they would receive a check that had somebody else's name on it. I still don't understand why we couldn't limit those letters to the people that got the wrong checks. We should, I mean, if that was in the database, it doesn't make sense. Why did we mail everyone a letter saying that they might have received something if that wasn't the case? Like, I'm not able to reconcile that. I think it's critical that we see some clear documentation to confirm how your team came to determine that the amounts on the checks are correct. And further, I want to be able to share with constituents instructions so that they can confirm individually that the checks that they receive are for the correct amount. I mean, I've said it once, I will say it again. The city is very good at taking our money, but not very good at giving it back. I also want to question the point made earlier that there was no SOP in place for this because this isn't a repeated practice. I would think that given the if there was concern, if it was identified that there were new people on the team, that creating that SOP would have happened at the onset. And so I would like to understand why that did not happen. But I also want to question the notion that this is uncommon because, I mean, there was news coverage about folks that are due credits for various tax payments. And the process by which we provide folks with credits should be very similar for this and other things. There should be an SOP in place when there are overpayments made, there are credits, there are additional amounts owed to residents. It should be universal. I wanted to finally ask a question more about Ms. Atkinson, because I was also surprised about the resignation. And when I heard the resignation, I assumed that there was an additional batch of checks that went out. But it seems that, the circumstances have not really changed that much. So I'm unclear why the resignation happened, given that, this was still the initial batch of checks by which this person apologized for publicly when that happened. My concern, my worry is that we are here because of so much transition in the department. In GovOps, we looked at departments that had high turnover rate, and this is certainly one of them. And I am concerned that her resignation is not going to help this and might make it worse. So I appreciate the question Councilwoman Abubakar asked. I want to get clarity on when her resignation actually happened. It's our understanding, my understanding, that the letter was dated Monday, April 21st, but it was not announced until Monday, the 28th. Could you speak to the specific timeline for her resignation?
No. Again, those are personnel issues that I am not going to get into. I can answer your question about credits. They are overpayments, and credits are two completely separate processes from what this is. So there are SOPs in place for overpayments and credits. That does exist. These two functions are completely separate and have a completely different process to follow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Joy Hogg. And as indicated, the items that administration has asked for hard copy to codify would be helpful. I think I have three last questions. And if we can, because we have another presentation as well, and if there is a question that Ms. Joy Hogg does not get to, that we would submit that for response as well. So I'm going to go to Ms. Abubakar, I think is next up.
Thank you. I just want to, because I feel like I've heard two different things so far. So the ordinance says that the rebate checks are based on the 2025 land book value, but that they go to the 2024 owners, correct?
Correct.
And so, because I think when you responded to Councilwoman Trammell, you just mentioned the 2024 value and owners. And so I want to make sure that the value that we are basing this on, so if my house appreciated, which it did in 2024 to 2025, I'm getting a bigger rebate check as that owner.
Yes, we use the 2025 land book to do the calculation, but then that payment goes back to the 2024 owner.
Okay. And then to go, there's been a lot of conversation around this being a manual process and that difference in owners. I mean, again, just one, I mean, I hope that part of what we're investing in is better software to handle this. But two, I mean, some of this is just based, the parcel ID didn't change, right? So we should be able to say, okay, we have used the parcel ID as our unique identifier, and then do VLOOKUP in Excel, which is Excel, I would call it 101, 102, to be able to track down owner from 2025, value from 2024, and value from 2025. I don't think that that's a process that does need to be, it kind of is terrifying to me that that would be a process that it sounds like you're saying that somebody's going line by line when there's a simple Excel formula that can provide that analysis based on parcel ID.
You are correct. There are VLOOKUPs, there are HLOOKUPs, all kinds of lookups that we could do. That was not done correctly.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, so to also answer your question, once the real estate module, it goes into RVA Pay, a lot of this will be taken care of because it will now start to get automated. So as we convert to a more automated process, less chance of human error happening.
You said that this was a process that we don't do very often. So is this something that
they could try to program it in at a later date if we were to do rebates? Initially, we need to move real estate into the RVA Pay module so it can actually calculate the real estate bills, and then as an iterative process, do any of these other, one-off calculations.
Okay. And then lastly, when's the next communication going out to the public with this information, particularly the June timeline and what's going on? Just we can do our part, but this should really be
Sure.
administration.
We can try to send something out by mid-June, because June 16th is when those remaining 8,000 checks will go dead. June 17th, hopefully they'll start printing again and get it out. So we can try early June to say, start expecting your check if you haven't received it.
Well, I think we should probably communicate something like this week to people, just with that timeline that you shared. If you're
Okay.
going to document it, yeah.
Sure.
We're getting a lot of questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. We have one more question. Councilmember Trammell?
I just need a clarification. Did one of my colleagues say that maybe we should do an outside investigation on this, or did I hear that right? You did. Well, the way I look at it, I know my citizens are going to be very, very upset, because every time we turn around, we're, outsourcing this or bringing somebody else in, and for them to do something that Sabrina has stood right there and said that she's asked, our auditor to help her with this. And to me, I don't think he's going to steer us wrong. He's going to give us all the facts that we need, like he always has, even the facts that we don't like. So I would definitely be against having someone else come in here to basically fix or try to fix what our auditor can do right there.
Thank you, Councilmember Trammell. Duly noted. And Ms. Joy Hogg, thank you for your presentation and commitment to get the information back to the body that has been shared already. And appreciate the next iteration. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, we're ready for the next presentation.
Yes, Madam Chair, the next report will be a water treatment facility update provided by DPU Director Scott Morris.
Welcome, Mr. Morris.
Thanks, Madam President and Vice President and members of council. I have the pleasure of going over the organizational development meeting, presenting on the water treatment plant. One of the previous requests posed to DPU was to try to do a more comprehensive discussion on all the activities that have gone on in the water treatment plant. So in addition to addressing the most recent item, I've gone through and compiled all the actions to date and showing you kind of where we are in the status. So as it relates to the H&TB report, I'm just going to go through this and do a quick synopsis, because I believe the intention is to get to the most recent items.
Absolutely, that's the intention. So we would appreciate very.
Yep, so I'm going to do a summary. You've all seen this on our website, so this is just for a record so you can reference at a later date. This is the most recent sanitary survey from VDH. Kind of outlines the 12 significant items, just kind of giving an update on where we stand with those. Most of them have been addressed in some fashion or another. And then this is just a general overview of all of the reports in their entirety, which is just 12 in progress, 25 minor deficiencies, 51 recommendations in their entirety. And then on this slide 17, the packet kind of just goes over the EPA 2022 report, just to kind of give you an update on all the pending items and where we stand with those. So there's 44 areas of concern identified by EPA. 31 of the 44 needs some level of follow-up with VDH. 10 of the 44 were fully addressed and accepted by VDH. 3 of the 44 we're still having discussions on if it met the criteria. And then on the observation from VDH, 20 of the 46 need follow-up. 14 of the 46 are fully addressed, and 12 of the 46 either not addressed or we needed further discussions. That's it for a general summary. And I wanted to kind of outline the actions from the most recent event to give you an update on that. Again, as referenced in the previous presentation, we're still in a review status to make sure that we're concurrent. But what it appears to date on February 20th, on the 23rd of the most recent month, April, there was a maintenance activity that was being performed at the water treatment plant on a fluoride pump. An improper valve lineup caused an additional dosage of fluoride into the system, of which case is over a 5-hour period. And then the operator on site did not escalate that up to DPU administration. And so subsequently, we did not notify any of our counterparts or VDH in that discussion. Notification was given to DPU administration on Sunday night around 9 o'clock. That's when the notification came. So I think the actual text notification was around 8:45. Subsequent to that, we started following up with VDH and our regional counterpart to have the discussion. And then subsequent to that, on the following morning, I personally met with VDH on site at the water treatment plant to review the activity and to find out if we could, the root cause for that evaluation. And we ultimately determined that the root cause that was associated with the valve lineup with the fluoride pump number 2. That's the one that was being repaired. And just for awareness for everybody, we had these fluoride pumps offline since the January 6th event due to the flooding activity. So subsequent to that, we had prioritized some of our other maintenance activity ahead of the fluoride pumps. And this was an effort to get the fluoride system back up and going. And so this is a result of ongoing maintenance activities at the water treatment plant. So in conjunction with that, we have had discussions with the plant staff to go over what that proper valve lineup was and additional training for those. One of the questions that's not on here is the standard operating procedure development. I know I've given a briefing to GovOps and OD previously on the number of SOPs that we were drafting. There's about 58 of them. I did provide a handout to everybody that kind of shows the number of SOPs that are being developed and general time frame for those SOPs. It's not on this slide. But the first batch of those SOPs that were being developed were due to be given to DPU this week for review. I have received the communication SOP, and we're in the process of reviewing that and getting that out to plant staff to finalize, but also to do subsequent training on those. We hope to have that finalized this week and then do the training over this week and next week to make sure staff are made aware of that hierarchy for reporting. And with that, I'll open myself up to Q&A from the council.
Yes, I'm just, Councilmember Abubakar.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Morris. This may or may not be a question for you. So just so I've got the timeline in terms of communication correct, you did not learn about it until Sunday around 8:45 p.m., correct?
Correct.
And then it was reported to our regional partners that same night or Monday morning.
Ma'am, that was forwarded to our mutual partners on Sunday night when I made the conversations with VTH and our mutual partners.
Okay. And then when was the mayor informed of this?
The mayor was formed the next morning, Monday.
Okay. In terms of, and you've done a lot of work on SOPs, particularly around the facilities. What are some of the SOPs that we're putting into place, again, to make sure that there's standard procedures around communicating these events, not just internally, but also externally to those partners?
Yeah, so this SOP that I'm drafting today goes over, or the one I'm reviewing today, but we'll finalize this week, goes over the protocol for both internal communications, but also external communications. So it kind of breaks it into escalation points for normal parameters at the water treatment plant, but also emergency activities. And so that you'd have 5 different escalation points. One is for internal communication with staff. One is for the supervisor on site. One is for the chief operator on site. One for the superintendent. One's for the senior deputy. One's towards myself. And those all trigger different escalation points with our community partners.
Thank you.
Mr. Morris, I'd like to, and I'll come to you, Councilmember Trammell, just to have, once you have reviewed and finalized that communication SOP, if we could have copies of that as well. And I suspect, certainly hope that in addition to all of the communication spots you indicated, it also includes City Council.
We definitely do that, yes.
Okay. Councilmember Trammell?
Thank you, Madam President. Scott, I just want to say this. I am so sorry that you've come into this. This is a big mess. And this is no fault of yours or our mayor, our new mayor, because this was going on years and years ago. And, I feel sorry for a lot of the workers down there because they've been blamed for things that they shouldn't be really blamed for. Um, and us council members, we're catching hell too. And it's not, we weren't informed and it wasn't your fault, wasn't, Sabrina, because we didn't know. And, maybe they didn't know the protocol to call or what, but, we get the phone calls and I do on the Sunday because you took my call yesterday and I really, really appreciate that because when you got a busted water line, not just the meter, but the line, and there's water all over the place, that's causing people's utilities to go up because, you have to repair it. If somebody would tell you when it first happens and we fix it, then that would stop all of this, money being wasted. But I just want to say thank you. You're doing a great job. And, I felt in your voice the other day, you felt a little frustrated, which I don't blame you because I know I was. So I was getting yelled at on the phone about it. But I just want to tell you, you're doing a good job. Hang in there and, don't be afraid to tell us and let us know because I know your boss, Sabrina, would want you to tell her the truth so that she can jump on it and our mayor. And it's not fair that our mayor got tore up yesterday by a few people that I had to tell them, why are you blaming him? He just got here on the 1st of January. This was going on years ago that should have been brought to the previous council members so we could have been on top of it, working on it. So I just want to say thank you.
I appreciate the support.
Thank you, Councilmember Trent. I have Councilmember Robertson is queued up next. I think I'm sorry. I'm going to need, Mr. and Madam Clerk, I'm going to need some different numbering on these queues up. So Councilmember Gibson, I'm going to go with you, and then Councilman Breton.
Thank you, Madam President. My questions are around the timeline on this, and I apologize that the timeline, it was surprising on Monday, on the heels of our formal meeting, we're working on the budget to get hit with this double whammy of news releases about these issues, both the issue with the checks and then the issue with the water plant. And on the water plant issue, it was reported that a plant operator knew about the problem on Thursday, the 24th, which is, 4 days before it was reported publicly. Why is it? Is that accurate? Why is that? And yeah, those are the two questions.
That is accurate. They did a maintenance evolution on Wednesday, and a sample was taken by the plant operator on Thursday that indicated the value that was reported to VDH, which is in excess of 2 milligrams per liter. Failure to communicate on the plant's portion up to administration resulted in a delay in communication to both our regional coordinators, but also council, city administration, so we can do that level of coordination. That notification subsequently came to me at 8:45 on Sunday.
Thank you. So what are we doing, big picture? When the water treatment center had the failure in January, I think the primary thing that really we heard loud and clear from residents was frustrations as it pertained to communication. And so while this incident did not seemingly have health implications or access implications, it did reinforce this frustration and challenges with communication. What big picture, what can we do to address these communication issues moving forward?
Yeah, I think ultimately we need to do is something that we've already planned to do, which is making sure that the communication plan is formalized and gets out and trained against, so employees know who to call and when to escalate things. Not knowing what to do and when to do it is always a concern to me. And so I think that in and of itself will help. As part of that communication plan, we're also developing templates of standard press releases to get out to the communities for notification. One thing that we did after this event was to try to proactively go out and try to address some of the concerns for our constituents, doing additional samplings in our distribution system, doing a subsequent press release to notify them when those levels had returned to normal operations to try to improve that level of communication. And I think that just open and transparent communication, just like in this slide deck that I gave you right earlier in the presentation, trying to summarize all the activities that are ongoing in the plant, open and timely communication, being more proactive and getting that information out to the constituents is ultimately where we have to be.
Thank you.
Councilman Breton?
So I think many of us, myself included, on the campaign trail, we're talking about all the improvements to city processes we want to see, our commitment to transparency, and basically an acknowledgement and an expectation that we were going to start uncovering processes that need improvement. We were going to start finding problems, and not to, and that we needed to start rewarding transparency, not punishing it. So I can certainly understand that, when a mistake is made, I can understand that there might be folks might have an inclination to hide it, to avoid communicating it up the chain. They might fear repercussion of some type. And so I'd like to know kind of what is your strategy for encouraging and rewarding transparency and making sure there's not a fear of transparency. So what's your strategy for creating a culture of transparency within your department?
Yeah, I've had recent conversations with my staff and all staffs just talking about my general vision of the department. And I see us as a department high of accountability, similar to the mayor's initiative. In order to do that, I think there's a level of just willingness to divulge information. And as long as you're not doing something in malice, there's no disciplinary action to be taken. But if you're knowingly doing something or omitting something, we have to hold those individuals accountable for the actions that they take, both myself included. And so the intention behind this is trying to promote an atmosphere where everybody's willing to collaborate and bring stuff forward. And as long as you're doing that in a state of trust and trying to improve the system and not to create a chaos per se, I think that's the vision that we move forward with.
Thank you, Mr. Morris, and thank you for this update. And as you finalize the communication protocol, as you said, you'll share that with us. And I want to say also, I have appreciated receiving the text updates when things with DPU are going on in the streets. I, know when they're happening based on the information I'm getting and when they are being, fully remedied. So really appreciate that, because then I get calls, I can say what's happening. So look forward to even more of those system improvements as you continue to look at our system and how we can better keep the citizenry advised, the council advised, et cetera. So thank you very much for that.
Appreciate that.
Members, with that, that concludes the reports from administration today. We'll receive now the reports of standing committees. Looking at about 5 minutes or so. Say again? I didn't hear. I'm sorry. Oh, land use is attached. So thank you, Councilmember Jones. And there should be, does everyone have it? Mr. Perkins, if you'll come forward, does everyone have the updates from the various committees? So if members, we could take time to look at them at another time, and or if you want to particularly highlight something from the committee, you can do that as well.
Good evening, council members. Will Perkins here, policy manager. You each have received on Friday, you received an email from me with brief summaries of each of the 5 committees. I took the liberty of providing you each personalized packets today. So if you're a chair of a committee, you have a second page that's a summary of your committee. as you're delivering a summary right now, as we're about to, you may choose to use that as a starting place, or you can tell a different story as you see fit. But that's the explanation for why our committee chairs each have a different second page. You all received the full packet of information on Friday. Just wanted to make that as easy as possible for you today. So again, sorry, we're still sort of working out exactly the process here, but that's to explain what's in front of you on your desk.
Mr. Perkins, thank you. And members, as indicated, you have the updates from each of the committees. If there's anything in particular you want to highlight from your committee, please feel free to give me indication by lighting up. And if not, if you would take the opportunity to read through the document that Mr. Perkins sent to us. Seeing none at this time, we will move on to the next item for us, which is a closed session. And I believe Councilmember Abubakar, you have the motion.
I move that the Organizational Development Standing Committee go into closed meeting pursuant to subdivision A1 of section 2.2 3711 of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act to discuss and consider the performance of a council appointee.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
The committee is voting on the motion to enter into closed session. Mr. Breton.
Aye.
Ms. Gibson.
Yes.
Ms. Jones.
Aye.
Ms. Robertson.
Aye.
Ms. Lynch.
Aye.
Ms. Trammell.
Aye.
Ms. Abubakar.
Aye.
Vice Chair Jordan. And Chair Newbill.
Aye.
That motion was approved.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Members, we will convene for the closed session in large conference room, second floor. Mr. Clerk? Mr. Clerk or Madam Clerk?
Yes, ma'am. I will just need a motion to exit the closed session. The committee is voting on the motion to exit closed session. Mr. Breton.
Aye.
Ms. Gibson.
Yes.
Ms. Jones. Ms. Robertson. Ms. Lynch. Ms. Trammell. Ms. Abubakar.
Aye.
Vice Chair Jordan. And Chair Newbill.
Aye.
The Organizational Development Standing Committee hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification applies, and only such public matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the committee. Mr. Breton.
Aye.
Ms. Gibson.
Yes.
Ms. Jones. Ms. Robertson. Ms. Lynch. Ms. Trammell. Ms. Abubakar.
Aye.
Vice Chair Jordan.
Aye.
And Chair Newbill.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members, the agenda for the OD meeting have been addressed. This meeting now stands adjourned. Thank you.